San Diego, California, summer, 1967. The bar is called the Rusty Anchor. It sits 2 miles from the main gate of Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and on any given Friday night, it holds more active duty Marines than the base gym. Low ceilings, sticky floors, a jukebox in the corner playing Creedence Clearwater Revival, loud enough to rattle the bottles behind the bar. The kind of place where everyone knows what everyone else does for a living. And what everyone does for a living involves being large, fit, and trained to hurt people. Tonight the bar is full. There are perhaps 60 men inside. Most of them are in civilian clothes, but carry themselves the way Marines always do. Shoulders back, jaw set, the particular stillness of men who have been trained to be ready. Some are fresh off deployment, some are instructors. A handful are career men with 15 or 20 years in, the kind whose forearms look like they were carved from something other than muscle. At a table near the back, 4 Marines are drinking. The largest of them is a man named Carter, Sergeant First Class Raymond Carter, 26 years old, 6 feet 2 inches tall, 260 pounds of the kind of mass that comes not just from the gym, but from genetics. Broad bones, thick wrists, a neck so developed it makes his head look like it sits directly on his shoulders. Carter has been in the Marines for 6 years. He was the heavyweight wrestling champion of his division for 3 consecutive years. Before enlisting, he had played defensive end for a college team in Alabama. He is not a man who has ever needed to think carefully before entering a confrontation. He does not think carefully now. Across the bar, sitting alone at a small table near the jukebox, is a man who does not look like he belongs. He is small, 5 feet 7, maybe 145 pounds, Chinese, young, mid-20s, though he carries himself with a composure that makes him seem both younger and older at the same time. He is wearing dark slacks and a plain white shirt. He is nursing a drink and watching the room with the kind of unhurried attention that people who are completely at ease with themselves tend to have. He is not looking for trouble. He is not performing calm. He simply is calm, the way a stone at the bottom of a river is calm, not because nothing is moving around it, but because the movement does not affect it. His name is Bruce Lee. He is in San Diego for 2 days, driving back to Los Angeles after visiting a student who had relocated to the city. He stopped at the Rusty Anchor because it was close to the freeway and he was thirsty. He does not know anyone here. No one here knows him. Not yet. Carter notices him from across the bar. He says something to the men at his table. One of them laughs. Carter picks up his beer, stands, and walks across the bar toward the small table by the jukebox. He does not walk the way most men walk when they are trying to seem casual. He walks the way a man walks when he has decided something and the deciding is already done. He stops at Bruce Lee's table. He looks down. He says, "You lost, friend?" If you love Bruce Lee stories, subscribe. I post rare stories every day. Bruce Lee looks up. He does not look startled. He does not look threatened. He looks at Carter the way a chess player looks at a board, taking in all the information quickly, processing it, filing it. "Not lost," Bruce says, "just drinking." Carter pulls out the chair across from him and sits down without being invited. His friends at the back table are watching. 2 other men nearby have already shifted in their seats to see what is happening. "You know what this place is?" Carter says. "A bar," Bruce says. "A Marine bar," Carter says. "Marines drink here." "Not," he pauses. The pause is not an accident. It is the pause of a man choosing how far to go. "Not tourists." Bruce Lee takes a sip of his drink and sets it back on the table. "I'll finish this and go," he says. He is not afraid. There is no performance of bravado, no puffing of the chest, no hardening of the jaw. He simply means it. He will finish the drink and leave because he has no interest in whatever this is, not because Carter has intimidated him. This, it turns out, is the wrong response. Carter wanted fear. Carter expected fear. He has produced fear in rooms full of men. This quiet acceptance, this total absence of the reaction he expected, does something to him that he cannot immediately identify and does not have the self-awareness to examine. He leans forward. "What is it you do?" he says. "For work." "I teach," Bruce says. Carter looks at the size of him, the suit, the small hands around the glass. He makes a calculation that every man who has ever made this mistake has made. He calculates with his eyes instead of his brain. "Teach what?" "Martial arts," Bruce says. The table goes quiet for exactly 1 second. Then Carter laughs. It is a genuine laugh, not cruel, not performed, Just the honest response of a man who has found something genuinely funny. Martial arts, he says. He calls back to his table. Hey, this guy teaches martial arts. The men at the back table laugh. Carter turns back to Bruce. He is still smiling, but something behind the smile has changed. The laugh has given way to something more purposeful. I wrestled in college, Carter says. 6 years Marine Corps combatives. You think what you teach works on somebody like me? Bruce Lee looks at him for a moment. I think it works on anyone, he says. Carter stands up. He is not angry. He is enjoying himself. He extends his arm and points at the floor in front of Bruce's table. Show me, he says. Right here, you and me. Prove it. The bar has gone quiet. Not completely, the jukebox is still playing, but the human noise has dropped. People are watching. The bartender has stopped wiping glasses. The men at the back table have stood up to see. Bruce Lee looks at Carter's extended arm. He looks at Carter's face. He looks at the room around them. He sets his drink down. There is a thing that happens in the moment before a confrontation that very few people can see and almost no one can describe. It is not visible in the way that movement is visible. It is more like the change in air pressure before a storm, a shift in the quality of the space between two people that announces, to anyone sensitive enough to feel it, that what comes next has already been decided. Bruce Lee stands up. He is so much smaller than Carter that several people in the bar later said they actually looked away at that moment, not out of disinterest, out of the instinct you feel when you see something that seems like it is about to go badly. The way you flinch before a car accident you cannot prevent. Carter is smiling. He has 60 pounds on Bruce Lee. He has 6 feet 2 inches of leverage. He has 6 years of Marine Corps combatives training and 3 years of collegiate wrestling. He has won every physical confrontation he has ever been in, and he has been in many. His body knows how to do this. It has been practiced into automatic. He does not need to think. He reaches out with his right hand and grabs Bruce Lee's collar. The grip of a 260-pound man who has spent years training his hands is not a small thing. It is the kind of grip that ends arguments before they begin, the kind that makes the person on the receiving end immediately aware of the difference in scale. Carter pulls. If you love Bruce Lee stories, subscribe. I post rare stories every day. 4 seconds. That is what the men who were in that bar later agreed on. Not 4 seconds of struggle. Not 4 seconds of back and forth. 4 seconds from the moment Carter's hand closed on Bruce Lee's collar to the moment Carter was on the floor. Here is what happened inside those 4 seconds. The moment Carter's hand made contact, Bruce Lee did not resist the pull. He moved with it, not backward, not in the direction Carter was pulling, but into it, rotating his body slightly so that Carter's force found no resistance and carried past its intended target. The pull that was meant to bring Bruce toward Carter instead unbalanced Carter forward, his own momentum working against him in a way he did not have time to process. Carter's weight came forward. Bruce Lee was no longer where Carter's weight was going. His left hand came up and made contact with Carter's right wrist. Not a grip, not a lock, just a redirect, a gentle but absolute suggestion about where Carter's arm was going to go next. Combined with the forward momentum Carter himself had generated, the redirect was enough. Carter's balance broke. Then Bruce Lee's right hand moved. Not a punch, a palm. Flat, controlled, delivered to Carter's sternum with the precise amount of force required to complete the geometry of the moment. Not to injure, not to humiliate, but to finish the equation that Carter's own body had started. Carter went down. Not slowly, not theatrically. The way large objects go down when their foundation is removed. Completely and all at once. He hit the floor on his back. He was not unconscious. He was not hurt. He lay on the sticky floor of the rusty anchor with the jukebox still playing and the bar completely silent around him, and looked up at the ceiling and took one long breath. Bruce Lee stood over him. He reached down and offered his hand. Carter looked at it. He looked at Bruce Lee's face. He took the hand. Bruce Lee pulled him to his feet, and the strength in that pull, witnesses later said, was itself a kind of answer to the question Carter had asked. It was not the pull of a 145-pound man. It was something else entirely. Carter stood. He looked at Bruce Lee for a long moment. "What was that?" he said, not aggressive, genuinely asking. "That," Bruce Lee said, "was the question you were trying to answer." He picked up his drink from the table. He finished it. He set the glass down, nodded once to the room, and walked out of the rusty anchor into the San Diego night. The bar stayed quiet for several seconds after the door closed. Then someone at the back table said, "Who was that guy?" Nobody answered. Nobody knew. Carter did not talk about that night for almost 10 years. The men who were with him that evening have described his demeanor in the days afterward in consistent terms. He was not angry. He was not embarrassed in the way that men who have lost fights are usually embarrassed. He was quiet, more quiet than usual, which for Carter was saying something. He went to the gym harder than he already did. He started asking questions of the combatives instructors on base that he had not asked before. Questions about what happened when the system stopped working. What to do when the man across from you was not following the script. None of the instructors had answers he found satisfying. One of them, a staff sergeant who had trained in judo before enlisting, asked Carter why he was suddenly asking these questions. Carter told him what had happened at the bar. The staff sergeant did not believe him. Not because Carter was known for lying, but because the geometry of what Carter was describing did not fit anything he understood about how physical confrontations worked. A 260-pound Marine wrestling champion, put on the floor in 4 seconds by a 145-pound Chinese man in a white shirt. The staff sergeant listened to the whole story. When Carter finished, the staff sergeant asked one question. Did he seem like he was trying? Carter thought about this for a long moment. That's what bothered me, he said. He didn't seem like he was doing anything at all. In Los Angeles, Bruce Lee was not thinking about the bar in San Diego. He was thinking about what he was always thinking about, the problem that had consumed him since he was a teenager in Hong Kong, training under the Wing Chun master Ip Man. The problem that had followed him across an ocean to Seattle and then down the coast to Los Angeles. The problem that was both the engine of his life and the thing that would not let him rest. What is the minimum required to stop any attack from any person of any size? Not the minimum in theory, the minimum in fact. He had been developing his answer to this question for years, and the answer kept changing as he learned more. Not because the core principles shifted, but because he kept finding new implications, new angles, new places where the principle applied that he had not expected. He was filling notebooks. He was studying physiology and physics. He was sparring with anyone willing to spar with him, and then going home and writing about what happened, what worked, what did not work, and why. The session at the Rusty Anchor was not an experiment. It was not a demonstration, but it confirmed something he had suspected for a long time about the nature of size and force. Large men are powerful, but power is only useful if it goes where you intend. Redirect the intention, and the power works for you. Carter's 260 pounds had not been the problem. Carter's 260 pounds had been the solution. Bruce Lee had simply borrowed them. This is Jeet Kune Do. Not a style, not a system. A principle so fundamental that once you see it, you cannot understand how you missed it. You do not fight force with force. You find the direction force is already traveling, and you give it somewhere better to go. Bruce Lee wrote about this in his journal that year. The entry does not describe a bar or a Marine or a Friday night in San Diego. It describes the problem in the abstract, in the language of physics and philosophy that he had been developing since he was a teenager. The man who meets your force with equal force will sometimes win and sometimes lose. The man who meets your force with direction will always win. If you love Bruce Lee stories, subscribe. I post rare stories every day. Raymond Carter left the Marine Corps in 1971. In the months before his discharge, he began training. Not in Marine Corps combatives, in Kung Fu. He had found a school in San Diego run by a teacher from Hong Kong. A small school with 12 students and a plain wooden floor and no sign above the door. He trained there twice a week for 8 months before his discharge. He was not good at it. He was too big, too accustomed to using mass as his primary tool, too trained in the forward pressure style of wrestling to easily absorb the concepts his teacher was trying to give him. But he kept coming back. His teacher asked him once why he was training so hard when it was clearly frustrating him. Carter told him about the bar. His teacher listened without interrupting. When Carter finished, his teacher nodded slowly. "You met someone who knew the principle," he said. "What principle?" Carter said. His teacher picked up an empty water glass from the table beside him and placed it in Carter's open palm. "Squeeze," he said. Carter closed his hand around the glass and squeezed. The glass pressed into his palm, unmoving. "Now," said his teacher, and with one finger tapped the side of Carter's fist, gently. Carter's grip broke. The glass tilted. He caught it before it fell, but only just. Size moves forward, his teacher said. Direction moves sideways. Sideways wins. Carter looked at the glass in his hand for a long moment. He told me something like that, he said. The man at the bar. Who was he? His teacher asked. Carter shook his head. I didn't know then, he said. I know now. He had seen a photograph in a magazine, a martial arts publication that ran a profile of an emerging figure in the world of Kung Fu. A young Chinese-American man in Los Angeles who was developing a new approach to combat and beginning to attract attention in Hollywood. The man in the photograph was small, dark eyes, wearing a plain black uniform. His name is Bruce Lee, Carter said. His teacher went very still. You let Bruce Lee grab your collar, his teacher said. Carter said nothing. And then he helped you up, Carter said. His teacher looked at him for a long moment. That sounds right, he said. That sounds exactly right. There is a version of this story people tell as a story about Bruce Lee defeating someone. That version is accurate, but incomplete, because what happened at the Rusty Anchor in the summer of 1967 was not primarily a story about defeat. It was a story about teaching. Bruce Lee did not go to that bar to demonstrate anything. He did not pick the confrontation. He did not escalate it. When given the opportunity to walk away, he said he would, and he meant it. It was Carter's insistence, Carter's need to resolve a challenge that only existed in Carter's own mind, that created the moment. And when the moment came, Bruce Lee resolved it in the most efficient way possible. Not by overpowering Carter, not by damaging his pride more than was necessary, not by performing for the crowd in the bar. He answered the question Carter had asked. You think what you teach works on someone like me? And then he offered his hand and left. He borrowed Carter's force. He redirected it. He returned it. And then he finished his drink and walked out the door. This is the thing that separates what Bruce Lee was doing from what the men in that bar understood fighting to be. They understood fighting as the assertion of force. The bigger force wins. Bruce Lee understood something else entirely. He understood that force is always borrowed, that the most efficient fighter is not the one who brings the most force, but the one who finds the force that is already present and guides it. Water does not fight the riverbank. Water finds the lowest point and flows there. Be like water, he said, over and over in interviews and journals and letters for the rest of his life. At the Rusty Anchor, with 60 Marines watching, with the jukebox playing and the bottles behind the bar rattling, he had demonstrated exactly what he meant. Not for them, not even for Carter, just because it was true. And truth, in Bruce Lee's world, did not need an audience. It only needed to be practiced. Every day, without fail, until the principle was not something you thought about, but something you were. Empty, flowing, ready, be water, and the rest will take care of itself.